The dawn broke over Emmerdale, but for the Dingle and Goskirk households, the world remained shrouded in the suffocating darkness of fear and tragedy. The events of the previous evening, April's tearful confession of being a killer, Ray's horrifying admission of covering up the body, Celia's ice-cold display of power, and the devastating news of Dylan's hit and run had fundamentally fractured their reality. At Houghton General Hospital, the intensive care waiting room was a silent torture chamber for Patty and Mandy. Patty, exhausted but resolute, clung to the sliver of hope that Dylan, who was out of surgery but still in a coma, was at least still with us. He had been warned by doctors to prepare ourselves for the worst. April, against Rona and Marlon's frantic pleas to return home, insisted on staying. Her guilt was a physical weight, convinced that Dylan's suffering was all her fault. When the police arrived to ask questions about the narcotics found in Dylan's system, the pressure became unbearable. "Detective, Mr. Dingle, can you confirm if your son was known to use heroin?" "Patty, no. No, that can't be right, though. He was clean, all right." The detective's gaze fell on April, who was trembling, yet steadied herself. She had to maintain the lie that protected her parents, the lie she believed would keep everyone safe. She forced herself to adopt the police's theory, the one that painted Dylan as the author of his own misfortune. "April, he didn't turn up to his birthday party because of me. I was putting too much pressure on him, and that's why he went out and scored. It wasn't like that, but that's why he went out." Her voice cracked on the final words. Mandy, in her grief, accepted the narrative instantly, asking April how else the drugs could have gotten there. Patty, though disbelieving, "Stop talking silly," was too consumed by the coma to challenge her. Meanwhile, Marlon and Rona arrived, feigning concern and bringing coffee, their real purpose being to check on the brilliant key witness and intercept any further communication from Celia. "Marlon, we need to get her home. Celia knows where Leo goes to judo. Every minute April is out of our sight, they have the leverage." As they watched Dylan through the glass partition, the doctor approached Patty with an unexpected update. He mentioned that Dylan's injuries suggested he had struggled before the accident, and that they had found a fragment of skin beneath his fingernail, evidence of a desperate scratch. When the detective produced a photo of the fragment, a tiny, magnified patch of skin marked by a distinctive, jagged scar, Marlon felt the blood drain from his face. He recognized it instantly. It was the scar on Ray's forearm, the one he had noticed during a casual conversation. "Detective, does anyone recognize this old injury mark? We believe the patient may have scratched his attacker in self-defense." Marlon raised a gem at covering his tracks. "If I say anything now, they'll know I know. Celia will know I know. She'll deal with us." Marlon quickly denied recognition, forcing his mind to repeat April's protective mantra, "It keeps everyone safe." He knew, with absolute certainty, that Ray had not only run Dylan over but had been involved in a physical struggle with the boy. First out Rona. "Marlon, what is it? You look sick." "Marlon, it's nothing, love. Just the strain." Marlon retreated, his resolve hardened. They couldn't rely on the police yet, they needed ironclad proof, not just a scar fragment that Ray could easily twist to implicate Dylan, calling him a promiscuous drug dealer who battered a punter to death after a row over coke. Back at the syndicate's HQ, Celia was supervising Ted in a meticulous cleanup. Ray, drinking heavily, looked sullen. "Celia, Dad knows how to do a decent cleanup. Such a shame Dylan was a filthy snitch. He wanted to destroy the entire setup. Lessons have to be learned." "Ray, you're talking about a kid who looked up to me. You talk like I'm Snow White. I covered up a murder for April, and now I've put a kid in a coma." "Celia, and today made me realize there is only one person in this miserable world that I can trust. You seem different since you met Laurel. It's time to confirm your loyalty." Ray instantly understood. Celia was going to test him using Laurel. His dreams of Tenerife and a normal gig were being weaponized. "Celia, I texted her. Told her you need her for a drop. A small, high-risk delivery. You need to pull her into this, Ray. If she believes you, she'll be silenced, just like April. You need to ensure her loyalties are straight." "Ray, but she doesn't know anything about the debt, about April, or Callum." "Celia, she can be useful. If she wants to be with you, she must accept the rules. She needs to understand that accidents happen. Cars crash. You just start again." Ray was trapped. He sent the pre-written text to Laurel, a simple command veiled in opportunity: "Change of plan. We need you to work. Ray will text you with the details." He knew he was leading the woman he loved into the terrifying gravity well of his mother's criminal enterprise. Laurel, still glowing from her conversation with Nicola about Ray being her little ray of hope, was startled by the text. She had been busy decorating for Christmas, oblivious to the darkness unfolding. "Laurel, he wants me to work. A drop. High value. What does that even mean? Nicola, he's testing you, love. He wants you to be spontaneous. Get some action. Go, girl." Laurel drove to the secluded, industrial location Ray had sent. She pulled up near a shadowy warehouse loading dock, her heart fluttering with nervous excitement. She was dressing for a civilized family tea, believing this was her chance at a proper life. Ray emerged, looking defeated and visibly shaking, clutching a small, heavy package. Laurel, Ray. You look terrible. What is this place? A job? Is this part of the combine harvester business? Ray, stop. Laurel. Listen to me. This isn't a normal gig. This is Celia. Laurel's smile vanished. Ray, desperate to protect her but forced to involve her, rushed his words, stripping away his carefully constructed facade. Ray, Celia's in charge. The entire setup, the drugs, the sex work. It's her. April owes her money, and now she's using you to see if I'm loyal. Laurel, sex work? April? Oh, my God. You're talking about prostitution, Ray? Ray, worse. She killed a guy, Callum. I covered up the body. And Dylan. Dylan was a warning to us. Celia makes it happen. Laurel stumbled back, horrified, suddenly understanding the cryptic, dark edges she had occasionally sensed in Ray. Laurel, I don't want to be a part of this. I want a normal life. You promised me Tenerife. Ray, there is no normal life. Not once you're in. You just start again. Now you're here, and you're complicit. You have to take this package. If you don't, Celia will know. And she knows everything about you, Laurel. She knows about Dottie and Arthur. She knows where they are. Ray, she said, cars crash, houses burn, throats get slit. She said if you tell anyone, you'll wish you had never met her. Laurel sank against her car, her vision of Ray the caring man who was good with the kids shattering. She realized Ray was not a ray of hope but a victim, held captive by his own mother. Ray, take it. Deliver it. If you do this, she might leave you alone. Please, for your kids, for Dottie and Arthur. As Laurel reluctantly took the package, Ted appeared from around the corner, carrying cleaning supplies. Ted, Ray? Celia sent me. Just checking there weren't any loose ends. Oh, hello, dear. Laurel, isn't it? You do all right, Ray. Ted's oblivious presence cemented Laurel's terror. Ted was complicit in the cleanup. Laurel scrambled into her car, staring at Ray one last time, recognizing his pain but terrified of his mother. Laurel will kill you. She sped away, realizing that if she spoke, she wouldn't only be saving herself, but she'd be condemning Ray to Celia's ultimate wrath. Back at their home, Marlon was pacing, desperate to act on the knowledge of Ray's scar. Rona tried to calm him, reiterating her own experience. I was so scared of what he might do. But speaking up meant that I survived. Rona, we have to put our trust in the police. It's the only real option we have. It won't be easy, but eventually, all of this will be over. Marlon, but April said he will kill you. Celia said before I set foot in a courtroom, you, Leo, well, all of you will be dealt with. Marlon, I have to confirm the scar. I need to talk to Ted. He's the only one who might slip up about Ray's history, about Ray's loyalty. Rona tried to dissuade him, reminding him of April's fear that he will twist it all. But Marlon, spurred by the image of Dylan fighting for his life and the knowledge of April's trauma, could not wait. He found an anonymous phone box in the village, a relic of a safer past. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking, and dialed the police non-emergency line, ready to report everything: Ray, Celia, the murder of Callum, and the hit and run of Dylan. Marlon, I need to report a crime. Organized crime. They are using minors. The key players are Celia and her son, Ray. They forced April Dingle into prostitution. And they are responsible for the death of Callum and the attempted murder of Dylan. I have evidence linking Ray to the victim. He paused, listening to the operator. Just as he was about to give the address of the syndicate HQ, he heard the faint sound of a car engine idling nearby. He looked out of the phone box window and saw a dark silhouette. It was Ray's car. Ray must have seen Marlon in the phone box, or perhaps Celia, ever vigilant, had anticipated his move. Marlon slammed the phone down, sprinting back toward his home. Marlon burst through his front door. Rona and April were huddled together, April still whispering about the terrifying nightmare she had about Callum and Ray. Marlon, he's here. Ray saw me. I think he knows I called the police. Rona, no. We were too slow. April, she's on her way back. A fierce, rhythmic pounding erupted on the front door. Ray, Marlon. Open the gate. You should have kept your mouth shut. Marlon and Rona exchanged a panicked look. They had been warned. This was the moment of reckoning. Marlon, stay back. Don't open it. The pounding continued, becoming more aggressive. But the real, terrifying movement came from the back. The kitchen window, where Rona had been putting up half-finished Christmas decorations, suddenly shattered. Celia stepped through the broken glass with chilling composure, brushing shards of glass off her tailored coat. She was holding a familiar object, Leo's favorite toy, a small, wooden giraffe. Celia, I thought I told you, I never threaten anyone. I simply give instructions. Marlon stepped in front of April and Rona, his protective instinct overriding his fear. Marlon, get out of my house. You're a psychopath. Celia, I heard Marlon calling the police. You are now traitors. You were warned what happens to traitors. She looked at Rona, her gaze dropping to the toy giraffe. Celia, such a shame when accidents happen. I know where he goes to judo. Celia calmly reached up and pulled down a handful of tinsel that Rona had hung earlier, watching it fall to the floor. She dropped Leo's toy beside the pile of tinsel and shattered glass. Celia, you will wish you had never met me. Your daughter is a murderer, and you will all pay her debt. As Celia turned to leave, just as calm as she had arrived, Rona lunged forward, desperate to retrieve the toy, the symbol of her son's safety. Rona, no. Don't touch them. Celia merely smiled, looking at the chaos she had created, the shattered glass, the terrified family, and the shattered hope of a normal gig that Ray had once offered. She had confirmed her control. She had provided the ultimate, violent instruction. The consequence of speaking up had been delivered. The implication was clear: Celia would not stop at threats. The next sound they heard might be a car crash, or the scream of a child. For Marlon and Rona, the gamble had failed, and now, they were directly in Celia's crosshairs, their lives a direct consequence of April's devastating secret. The thick silence that followed Celia's departure from the Dingle-Gozkirk household was more deafening than any scream. The shattered glass of the kitchen window lay like treacherous diamonds on the floor, framing the ultimate threat she had left, Leo's beloved wooden toy giraffe. Marlon and Rona stood frozen, finally understanding the depth of the horror that had consumed their daughter, April. Celia's instructions, devoid of conventional threats, were far more terrifying. She knew every detail of their lives, from Leo's judo lessons to Ivy's toddler group, and she had demonstrated her ruthless efficiency by allowing Dylan to be run over. She's a psychopath, Rona whispered, clutching Marlon's arm, the memory of Celia's chilling smile and the calculated destruction of the window searing into her mind. Marlon, however, was filled not just with fear, but a cold, hard rage. I'm really bored, he muttered, echoing his earlier sentiment of exasperation at Ray's warped intimidation. He realized that their protective silence had achieved nothing but empowering Celia. We can't live like this. We have to show her there's a way out. He knew that by calling the police moments earlier, he had sealed their fate as traitors, but now, his focus shifted from protection to counterattack. They needed proof to dismantle the crime family. Meanwhile, Laurel was driving towards the remote drop-off point, her initial excitement about Ray and a normal gig completely eclipsed by a creeping sense of dread. She held the mysterious, heavy package, a symbol of her unwitting involvement in the syndicate. Her mind raced, grappling with the stark reality. The man she saw as a ray of hope was entangled in a world where a child like April was forced to sleep with men for money and cover up murder. When she found Ray, he looked like a ghost, his handsome features strained by guilt and despair. He confessed that this delivery was Celia's test of his loyalty, a way to ensure he didn't leg it to Tenerife with Laurel. Ray, forced to protect himself and comply with Celia's demands, delivered his own version of a threat. Celia knows everything. She knows about Dottie and Arthur. Laurel realized Ray wasn't just a partner, he was a pawn, and she was now being pulled onto the hook right alongside him, forced to follow the rules of the family thing. This delivery meant she was now complicit, and if she spoke to the police, the accidents that Celia talked about would be directed at her own children. Ray, heartbroken, could only push her away, repeating the chilling instruction, "You just start again." At Hot in General, Patty and Mandy were reeling from the news that narcotics were found in Dylan's system. April continued to sacrifice herself, insisting that her pressure had caused Dylan to go out and score, thereby creating the conditions for the accident. Her lie kept Patty from investigating deeper, unaware that April was actually protecting him from the syndicate's wrath. The police investigation intensified, and the detective pressed Patty again regarding the skin fragment found under Dylan's fingernail, describing the distinctive scar. Marlon, having returned to the hospital to check on Dylan, found himself in a terrifying bind. When the detective produced a magnified photo of the jagged scar, Marlon recognized it as belonging to Ray. He knew that this was irrefutable evidence linking Ray to the struggle and subsequent hit and run, yet revealing it would instantly put Rona and the children in lethal danger. Marlon chose silence, repeating the denial, "It's nothing, it's fine." Suddenly, the tense atmosphere shattered. Dylan's heart monitor began beeping rapidly, followed by a surge of activity as doctors rushed into the intensive care unit. Dylan was crashing. As the medical team worked frantically, a nurse observed a flicker, "He's showing reflexive responses." Dylan was not dead, he was fighting. This news, though precarious, confirmed Marlon's earlier belief: if Dylan does comes through, then he'll be a brilliant key witness. However, the fragility of Dylan's life meant that if Celia or Ray found out he was still conscious, they would finish the job immediately. Marlon knew he couldn't wait for Dylan to recover or rely on the compromised police investigation. He needed a direct source. He decided to target Ray's employee, the seemingly simple man who had been ordered to do a decent cleanup. Marlon saw Ted as the only potential weak link, someone who, despite his loyalty to Ray, might be swayed by the sheer cruelty of Celia's actions, particularly against a child like Dylan. Marlon tracked Ted down near the syndicate's headquarters, intending to appeal to his conscience, hoping to convince him that Celia was a nutter, a bully, and that without Ray, she's done for. The confrontation was fraught with danger. Marlon positioned himself alone, knowing he was exposing himself to extreme risk. He found Ted meticulously cleaning up the area, unknowingly eliminating evidence for Celia. Marlon tried to convince Ted to turn on Celia, not by mentioning Callum, but by emphasizing Dylan's fate. Dylan wanted out of your sick world, Ted. He was a kid, and they left him for dead. Marlon pleaded, echoing the words used to try and convince Ray, we can walk away. Tell the police how it is, who it's always been right from the start, Celia. Ted hesitated, caught between his simple loyalty to Ray and the horrifying truth of Celia's indiscriminate violence. This high-stakes conversation hung over the village, deciding whether Marlon could acquire the hard evidence needed to save his family, or whether his desperate act would simply become the final confirmation of his treachery to Celia.